Hi, welcome to Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Robert Green, and joining me today are Jerome and Sam. Hey, guys.
Hey,
Hello,
Robert.
hello.
Welcome back to the show.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
Jerome and Sam have been longtime guests of the show. And Sam, you're in a bit of a new role since the last time you were on. You're now working with Uno Platform.
Indeed. I'm doing developer advocacy for Uno Platform and having a lot of fun doing modern cross-platform .NET, single shared code base, but with a lot of AI, and Visual Studio tooling helps a lot.
Excellent. So we're going to see what's new in Uno. Let's take a quick overview of it first. Actually, before we do that, why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Yes.
I kind of did, so Jerome, your turn.
Yes. So my name is Jerome Laban. I'm the CTO of Uno Platform. I've been in the .NET ecosystem for a very long time, and I have a proof of that I can show you. During the vacation, I was looking at a few things, and I don't know if it's going to show that well, but
Oh
I
my
Oh
found
goodness,
boy.
look at
that
that.
particular
Uh,
DVD that was in my stash somewhere, Beta 2 of .NET Framework. It's been there for a while. So I've been a contributor to .NET. I've been a contributor to Mono for a very long time, in Uno for about 13 years, something, 14 years, don't
Nice.
remember, don't count now. So it's been a while. And now it's all about, plugging everything with AI and see how far we can take .NET and the tooling that's around it.
Well, I've got swag from Visual Studio 2005,
aw.
so I've been around a long time as well.
You,
All
you know
right.
what AI cannot help is Jerome and me to stay warm. We are both on the eastern side of North America, and it's cold and snowy out there.
I'm
Yeah, not
here.
even the data center is going to help with this.
If you want, send all of your snow here to, I live just outside Park City, and we are dying due to lack of snow. So we'll take all
Uh,
of it. Just send it.
we have some.
All right, but we digress. So let's do a quick review of what Uno Platform is.
Yeah, and that's my screen, so I'll take over. So, for folks who might not know, hopefully you are in the .NET ecosystem, like the three of us here. It's a good place to be. It's everything is open source in .NET, no barrier to entry. Our tooling is great. Ecosystems are rich. So what's not to like? So where does Uno Platform fit into all of this? So well, we are an open source stack for .NET developers to build truly single source code, single shared project apps that just happen to run everywhere, and that includes iOS and Android for mobile devices, Windows, Linux, and Mac OS for desktop and embedded systems, and then the web browser through WebAssembly. So literally goes everywhere, and there's a lot of maturity built into the stack, lots of tooling. You have some choice of UI, but it is essentially all .NET that we are writing, C# and XAML, so comfort areas. So this is where we have been for a very, very long time. But you may have heard of this little thing called AI, which is changing how we live our lives, and has a huge impact on how we write software. It's fundamentally changing. It's a craft, but it's doing a fabulous job at keeping us more productive. So we are essentially rethinking what we do in this age of AI. So think about all of Uno Platform with the foundational things, now with a lot of AI. So a couple of things
Oh,
that we are really fond of. Sorry, Robert, you had a question?
No, I just said cool.
Okay, all right. So we have had some foundational things like, Robert, you might remember the design time things that we have always had in the desktop world with, WinForms and WPF. That
hmm
never quite made it over to the latest .NET with mobile and so on. So we have kind of recreated that with hot design and hot reload. So we essentially put your app in a suspended state, let you design things as you're working on it. So all of those things now work particularly well with AI. But AI is great. We have so many large language models, so many AI agents to work with, but they really need some context. Otherwise, they are blind a little bit, and they are going off in their own directions. So you need to provide the right guardrails. So this is where we come in and try to offer up some things called a model context protocol. It's a standard that most AI agents can now talk to, and it's a way of grounding things a little bit. So look at our docs, look at the best practices, and before you actually start generating code. And then once your app is up and running, you also want AI to have a little bit more kind of hands-on, so you can see your app and it can interact with your app while it's doing. So those are the things that we kind of bring to the surface with some very specialized MCP tools. Does it make sense?
Totally.
Yep. So we will show off some of this, but we have MCP servers that work across any thing that you want to bring. So one of our stances with Uno Platform is any OS as a developer, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, any IDE, and any AI agent that you want to bring. So we'll talk about Visual Studio, but just know that it works everywhere. And everything that we do, it's kind of surfaced up for developer productivity through what we called Uno Platform Studio. This is meant to elevate and make you more productive. So it includes that hot reload and hot design I talked about, includes some design to code, especially if you have things in Figma. Now with Figma MCPs and our MCPs, it's a really nice story to bring things over. And all along, whatever you're doing, it's grounded with our MCP servers.
So just to back up, go back to the first
Yeah.
slide you had. This stack looks pretty familiar. It's similar to what we saw with Xamarin. It's similar to what we've seen with Maui. We've seen this before with Uno. So is it basically fair to say that Uno is similar to Maui in that you write your app in XAML and C# and then compile it to run on multiple platforms, but Uno focuses on the WinUI XAML as opposed to the other XAML? Is that a fair statement? Fair summary?
Yes, and I'll let Jerome weigh in, but overall, yes. So the rendering stack, look, so the underlying stack is all .NET. So we are using the same mappings, but the rendering stack is different. On the rendering side, it can, like, once you know XAML, you can get around to different dialects of XAML. So as a developer, like, I don't mind one versus the other, but I do like this one here because it lets me really go everywhere. So the platform reach is a little bit more. And then, we have some choices in rendering. If your app wants to look like native iOS or Android, sure, you can do that. But we find that Skia, which is our preferred rendering engine now, it's unified and it's much, much faster. So your app looks the same everywhere. So the rendering stack is a little bit more matured with better tooling.
So if I have a WinUI app that works great on the desktop, I can use Uno Platform to get it to run on Android and iOS. Is that basically right?
Jerome.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. It's Android, iOS, web, with WebAssembly and
Web too.
and
That's right.
Linux. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the idea for adding all those targets. The web is not targeted by WPF at that time, nor by Maui. So this is a value add for using Uno, regardless of the fact that it's using a different XAML. So yeah, it's a different target. That allows for people to go to different, to reach more people across the web, and that's something that our customers are enjoying. The fact that deploying an app that was developed cross-platform can be deployed on many devices, particularly smaller set-top boxes where installing is a bit difficult. So that's a win on that side.
So if I have an existing WinUI app, how do I convert it to an Uno Platform app? What does that look like?
So not really converting. So that's where it's interesting. So because Uno is source compatible with WinUI, that means that basically the source that you have is just the same as as WinUI. So except if you have very, very specific pieces that are, let's say for instance Win32 only, which won't necessarily go across platform. But that's where if the rest is the same, then all your sources can be compiled against new target frameworks. So we have a few new target frameworks. So we have the desktop, we have WebAssembly, and then we have iOS and Android, which allow for getting across all the targets that we mentioned before. And with the age of AI, that's where it's interesting. There's helpers there to get you to migrate from one to the other. So
Okay.
it's basically changing a few things inside of a CS proj, and adding a new SDK, and then changing a few target frameworks here and there, and then you get your application running. So that's where that's the kind of new ways of working that AI can get for moving to adding Uno targets to your when you want
Okay,
existing
cool.
app.
And I could use Copilot to help me do that, right? I could
That's
just
correct.
say,
That's
how
correct.
do I convert this to target Uno?
Exactly. And
Uh,
then with the chart that or the second slide, that slide. So we have a few MCPs that are helping for this, and
mhm.
particularly the documentation MCP. That one is particularly important, where you're basically asking it to give you uh, you know, precise answers to get there. So in a case of a migration, if you're asking it to migrate from one to the other, then if you ask it to say, well, how do I create a new app and how do I migrate my code in there? It's probably going to tell you, you don't need to migrate, you just need to change your CS proj and get some changes here and there. And then you're going to get your conversion in place. So that's the kind of
Cool.
help that the Copilot can give.
Right on. And because the existing app is WinUI C#, I shouldn't have to make very many changes, if any at all.
That's correct.
It's nice.
Yeah. Shall we
Yeah,
see some of this in action? So
I
I
would love to.
I happen to be on a Mac as my host, but I use more of Windows for my dev. But just to kind of start people off, so if you are new to this, like everything we do starts off here at platform.uno, and from here on you can head on to Docs, which we spend a lot of time trying to make sure it's a good dev experience. Up front here, you'll see some getting started guides. So notice how you are not limited. You can really start from any of these IDEs or tools. For Visual Studio, a couple of things to keep in mind, and let's actually go into my Windows box here, open up the latest Visual Studio. You do want that extension. That really helps. So let me go in here, and you can see the Uno Platform app template here. So you'll want that template, and essentially what it does is if I click through trying to create a new app. So with that extension, we have a couple of tools in here. So let's go back to my browser. The one thing you will want to run, no matter where you're at, is this command line tool called Uno Check. This is our simplest way for getting you started because, cross-platform .NET Dev, it has its complexities because you are depending on the iOS and Android SDKs and Windows and macOS side of things. And those things change. You don't want your simulators to kind of go out of sync. You want your runtimes to be married up. So run this Uno Check in command line, no matter which OS you're on, and it's going to get all the bits. It's going to line up all your SDKs. And again, it's not a one-time thing. Even if you have like newer iOS things coming in, run Uno Check again, and we'll get the right bits for you. So again, this is a cross-platform tool. But like I said, get the extension. This is going to light up the templates and some of the tooling that we have. But that's it. So very easy to get started on, no matter where you're at. Now, once you start building up an app, I'm sure Jerome is going to show you more, but we have a nice template wizard here. So this essentially is just a core experience where you're choosing what type of app you want. So we have some blank or recommended templates. You can choose your runtimes, like what's your app runtime. You can choose the platforms where you want your app to run. So WebAssembly and Linux and desktop, and this WinApp SDK is the WinUI one that you were talking about, Robert. Uh, Presentation layer, I might have my biases towards MVVM as a design pattern. Works really well with C# and XAML. But guess what? Folks coming from other ecosystems, they really prefer the lightness of MVU. So we have created kind of a nice extension pattern that works with MVU. Markup, XAML, for the three of us who love XAML, and millions of others. But if you just simply don't want to do XAML, you can do C# all along.
Yep.
And then lots of themes, lots of extensions for doing variety of things. We do like pointing out the features thing here because this is where you can choose your UI stack, and then you can also do a PWA. We talked about .NET MAUI. You can bring it in as is and render some of the Maui UI with their rendering stack. So at the end of all of this, once you choose like authentication and testing and CI/CD pipeline, you get a pretty fully mature stack. It can be opinionated if you choose the recommended ones, because then you're all, you're falling into a pit of success. So once you go through all of this, you get a mature Uno platform app. So let me actually show you like a hello world experience here in Visual Studio. Let me see if I can bump up my fonts here. I can zoom in. So this is kind of a regular Uno platform app that you see. So everything is a single project. So you have your dependencies, you have your platforms. So your iOS, Android, desktop, and all of those things are essentially just folders. So if you have any permissions, things like Android manifest or delegates in iOS, those will need to be in those platform specific folders because it's a multi-targeted project, right? So you can do a build for just iOS or just Windows. So that's when it picks up from those platform specific things. But otherwise, your goal is to go cross-platform as much as possible. So if I look up the first XAML, it looks no different from any other XAML UI. So let me minimize all of this, and oops, give me a second. Mouse wise, there you go. So looks pretty standard XAML, right? And it just is, known to run everywhere. So it can already see that I can get a newer version of the Uno SDK, which I can ignore for now. But once I run this app, so again, the same app, the same build, multi-targeted can go to all the places. This one here is running on desktop. So once the app comes up, what it's trying to do here is just a hello world here. This is one of our counter samples. We have a lot of samples here. So you can see that it's a simple app. So I can click on the counter and everything works. But right up here, you can see we have some extra tooling. This is saying, hey, I got hot reload. I can see your code in the IDE. So I can keep that in sync. So now if I hit that fire icon, you go into what we call the design surface. So your app is still running. So it's not, died yet. It's running right here. So all of your app's data context is, with you as you are doing this. So in this hot design mode, you got a couple of things here up front. You can have this floating toolbar, which is really nice. You can see how your app looks like maybe in dark mode, right? Or light mode, good for accessibility. You can see how your app looks like perhaps on a mobile device. Like it takes forever sometimes to launch simulators and run it on 5 different places. Here is one place where you can see it, like how it looks like on a tablet, desktop. And you can, like, when you're trying to really align things as a developer, like you want pixel perfect alignment, you can like really zoom in, or you can say just make it fit my screen. So some nice little things right out of the gate with some design tooling. Make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where you can actually go into kind of interactive mode where your app is still running. So I can, change up my step size. I can do all the things with my app because the app is running. But when I go into kind of a selection mode, this is where the rest of the design thing really shines. You'll see here on the left, this is our big toolbox. So all of your UI, including any third-party UI, custom user components you have built up, everything shows up here. So you do have that nice drag and drop, right? And then you have, once I select individual elements, this is kind of like the developer tooling experience that you get in browsers. You get the full visual tree. So this being XAML, it shows you your parent-child relationships and containers. And I can select actually like once I have a UI element selected, I get my properties window here where I can select some or all of the properties. And I can do multi-select. So I can, select multiple things and then only the common ones show up here. That margin is, like, say 12 here. Let's make that, 25. So you can see like it adjusted the margins right here, but also hot reload picked it up. And if I go back to my IDE now, you will see the code changes right there as well. And it works both ways. I can make a code change in the IDE and it shows up here. So it's like a design surface while your app is running. Is that making sense?
Yeah, that is awesome.
And this is where Jerome is going to come in a bit. But right in here is an agent. So this is a custom, agent that is very good at working with your UI. I mean, sure, you have all of the design things right here, which takes no time. But if you want to be lazy like me, you can ask the agent to build you stuff, or you can ask it to tweak the UI right in here. And compared to other agentic flows, where AI agents will make code changes, and sometimes you might want to go back to certain steps, so that can be a little tricky without the UI. So we actually maintain, like, if you ask it to create something here, it's going to show you multiple iterations of changes that you're working on, and then you could say go back to the third one. That is the one that I like the most, and then when you hit apply, that's when it applies the code changes. So this is kind of our hot design experience. The agentic stuff, Jerome will show you in a bit. But
That's awesome.
these are the basics.
So I can show you a bit more things. So there's two aspects to the AI pieces that we've added in recent versions of Uno. And so I'm just going to recreate a simple application here. I'm just going to target desktop because it's easier for the demos right now. Otherwise, you'd get a bit more build time. So let's go just for desktop for now. And what we'll do here is have the agent help us in different ways. So the agent being either the Uno agent that's inside of Hot Design that Sam mentioned, but also the one that's inside of Visual Studio, the actual GitHub Copilot that's integrated here. So one of the things that we can do is ask questions to Visual Studio and to Copilot to explain to us what are features of Uno Platform. For instance, we're going to see here that we have two new tools that have been added on the side. So I can't zoom right now, but it's on the side. So it's two MCP tools that are added automatically because you added the Visual Studio extension. And once they're added, you're going to see that there are some tools that are included in there. So for instance, in here are MCP tooling, that's a remote server that the Visual Studios are automatically connected to. It can search documentation pretty much the same way that Microsoft Learn also has its own MCP tool that allows to search for documentation that's coming from Microsoft Learn, pretty much. So the idea is to ground the model into actual information and not what the learning cutout was. So for instance, if you talk about so this is Sonnet here, but if you take GPT 5 1 and 2, their cutoff is somewhere around November 2024. And so that dates back quite a bit. So that means that the information is probably dated a bit, and Uno has changed since then. So when you're asking questions, the information is going to come up to date from there. So let's try that. So let's say I want to use Uno Platform's MVUX patterns. Can you explain what that is? And then we're going to see that Copilot is going to start using tools that are coming from the Uno platform to say, I need to know what Uno platform is. So you see that it's calling a first init, which is something that will ground the agent into asking the right questions in the right place. Then it's calling search on our Uno MCP. So it's we can see the details here, but it's called to ask the right information about MVUX, and it's giving the right information. And it's interesting because this particular MVUX, if you were asking ChatGPT a while back, it would have said model view update. I don't remember the X, but it was a extension or something. It was not saying extended, so we named it that way, and it was giving the wrong naming. So now we know that because it's gonna get the right information from the source, then it's the right one. That's pretty cool to have that kind of grounding.
And that's basically the big benefit of the MCP servers, right? Is that you can tell Copilot specifically what information to search through, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not going to invent anything. It's really going to be using, particularly if there are patterns that may not have been documented properly at the time that the model was trained on, then it will invent things. It can ask questions, very specific questions, and get code samples about what needs to be done to use a specific topic or a specific API or whatnot.
If I'm going to use Copilot chat to work on an Uno app, it should use the Uno docs as its one of its primary sources, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where we're the Uno tooling is installing it automatically. We're doing this in VS Code as well. We're installing the R2 MCPs automatically, so you don't have to do anything. It's there, and then you can use it right away. We have a second one, which is the Uno app MCP, and that one is a little bit different. And I'm going to show you what that means. So let's say I'm going to create a new conversation. We're just going to start the app just so we can see what that does, and we're going to start chatting with Copilot to get it to do things on our app. Yeah, it's loading the symbols. It's taking a while for the first. Okay, there you go. So I'm just going to recite that a bit. Use the power toys. So when you're doing Copilot and you have a small screen, you want to use the power toys to put your apps at the top. Stay there. So this is Control Win T. It puts the app in front every time. So what I'm going to do is I wanted to do something in the app. So modify the XAML, and then I wanted to validate that it did the right thing. So I'm going to say let's add a new button that will show the current date when pressed. And I'm going to ask it to, let's make sure to validate the results in the running app. So that particular queue it's actually particularly interesting because it's going to trigger the model to do more testing. So recent models like GPT 5.2 and things like that, they're better at inferring that they have to do this, but some older models like Sonnet 4.5, they don't detect it always. So you have to hint it. It's something that you can put in your agents.md and things like that, but that helps. So I'm gonna just press the send the chat, and then we're gonna take a look at what Visual Studio's Copilot is gonna do to our app. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna open the main page.xaml so we can see the modifications that are being made by the tool. So it's reading the project, it's reading our CSproj file, reading the main.xaml to see what it needs to do on the file, and then it's gonna make some modifications to add our button and so it's adding a new button and text block so that it can show the result, and it's making an additional modification to this C# file so that it shows the button click. It's running the build, so the build was successful. I'm just going to force a hot reload so that we can get the update. So now you can see that Visual Studio Copilot is using our own MCP tooling to get information about the running app. It's also taking a screenshot of the app and it's analyzing the screenshot and says, and it took the screenshot before I updated with hot reload there. And now you can see that it took what is called a snapshot. So it's taking an XML description of the UI so it can see with less tokens than analyzing an image. It can see what the app is doing. Now it says, I can see that there's a show date button that I added and a text block. And it can reference those buttons and text blocks in a very specific way. So you can query those items directly. So for this, we can allow this always. So we're going to, it click the button. So with a peer default action, it actually click the button. So we can see that the app actually updated right away. And then now, because I asked it to make sure that it needs to validate what it's doing, it's taking, again, a snapshot, so an XML description. And again, a screenshot to see that it's happening properly. So it's now validating that the app has been updated properly and that the notification that it made are actually the right ones. So we can see that it detected that there's a button, it detected that there's a text block, detected a few things, it detected some objects and methods so that it can link back to it. So it analyzed a few things. So the takeaway for this is that the app MCP tooling that we're providing as part of Uno is able to communicate with the app so that the model can see what it's doing and interact with it. That's the important part. Because if you let a model do whatever it wants and then just validate through builds and unit tests, it might not do the right thing visually. So that's what we're giving with these particular MCP tooling.
So if I had the same WinUI app and I wasn't using Uno and I had Copilot add the button, it would add a button and it would add the code and it would code-wise probably come up with the same answer, but it wouldn't go through these additional checks in the snapshots, right? That's a Uno specific feature that you've built into um, that you've added essentially to Copilot chat. Am I correct on
That's
that?
correct. That's
That's
correct. That's
cool.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we added because it's particularly important. And if you've done something that on the web, there's Playwright that also has MCP tooling. It's pretty similar to what Playwright's doing, but it's for desktop apps and Uno apps specifically. So, the other things that are particularly interesting is that let me ask another thing there. Let's add a text box that will add a text to the displayed date when pressed. Let's validate the result in the running app. Okay, so I'm going to ask it to make some additional modifications there. So adding a new text box that should be somewhere in there. So when it finishes thinking, and then we're going to see where that goes. So there are a few other things that the tooling can do. It can do a click, point, it can do automation peer, it can do analysis. We're going to be adding more features as we go, particularly like drag and drop and things like that that apps are pretty keen on using. Okay, so it's modified the C#. Let me reload the app very quickly. Oh, probably not finished yet. It's not finished editing. Yeah, it's not finished editing. Okay, there we go. It's making an additional modification. There we go. Now we have our update here. So it's trying to read errors from the compilation, see if there's anything that needs to be changed. There are no errors. It's taking a screenshot again, and now it's going to determine that there's that new text box that's supposed to be added, and then it will make modifications to see what happens there. And if the change that was supposed to happen is the right one. So it's taking a snapshot again to see the internal structure of the visual tree. And then it will likely start to make modifications to the UI, like typing in that text box. So it clicked on the show current date, so it shows the current date. That's good. Then it will try to type something in the text box afterwards. So just as we're discussing this, philosophically, that's pretty interesting because we're seeing this as slow when we're demoing it. But if it were a developer that was doing this, it would be, fast. That's interesting and we know that models are going to get better and better and faster and everything like that. So all of this that we're waiting, this is going to go away. It's going to be super fast and it's going to be very interesting at that time. So now it's executing a
Well,
peer
let's
action
say it
again.
takes 5 minutes to write some code for you that would have taken you 3 days to look up and
Of
figure out
course,
yourself. That's blazingly fast, even if you think the 5
indeed,
minutes is slow. Let's be clear.
indeed, indeed. So, but anyways, I mean, we're impatient by nature. We want things to go fast.
Mhm.
So, and that kind of things in a sense that when it's going to go faster, and when you get that, everything that we've been waiting for the past 5 minutes, if that's going to go a lot faster, we're gonna like it. So
Yeah.
now it's going to be typing some text, and it's probably going to be it didn't work, but there's a reason for this. It tried to execute a command on the text box and didn't work. So we're going to see how it reacts to this because it typed text, but it's not there.
Sure.
Um, so now it fails, probably. So it clicked on the button to append the text, and it's going to see, well, that didn't work. So what didn't work? So that's one of the particular interesting thing about the models. They're resilient and they're never complaining. They're going to try and try to find a solution for you. Where you would have given up at some point because you couldn't find something. That's where that's interesting. So see, it says that the text didn't seem to happen. Um, Let me check if I can take another screenshot. So it's taking another screenshot. It's going to iterate again to get to a point where you can actually click on the button. So it's probably going to find that it needs to select the text box using a pointer click. So we're gonna see if it can find something like this. So it's trying to get data context. That's interesting.
Well, it
But
is
that's always the thing.
interesting. Like I've done vibe coding and I had Copilot built an app entirely for me. And it is interesting how often it makes errors and
Mhm.
then fixes those errors, right?
Yes,
I mean, it's almost human in that sense.
indeed, indeed.
So I'll just add that it's not vibe coding if you know what you're doing. It's just, AI is doing it faster for you.
It's
It's
the AI assisted coding.
right. I read a wonderful article the other day that said, code is cheap nowadays. Like it can generate so much of code, but guess what? Software is not cheap because like you're still putting it all together, architecting the thing.
Exactly.
And all of what, Jerome is trying to show here, what it does is it, builds up confidence in me as a developer while AI is churning. So it's not about just, one fire a prompt and go build an app. Did you validate that it's actually doing what I asked you to do? So this is where it just, iterates and iterates, trying to click on things, trying to type in things. So UI wise, it's functionally doing what I
Mhm.
asked it to do.
So, what are your thoughts on the idea that I could have Copilot basically write the entire app for me? Let's say I've never done WinUI at all. I'm familiar with some XAML, but I've never done WinUI. So I come in here, I create this app, and I say, build me this app that does all of the following things, and it does it, and the app works perfectly. And I could easily have a running app that I didn't write any of the code, and I therefore don't understand any of the code. Um, how do you what's your advice on how developers can avoid that trap of having an app that actually works and does everything they want them to do, but they didn't learn a thing about the code that was written because they didn't have to take the time to learn anything about the
Mhm.
code that was written?
Jerome, you go first. I got my
Yeah,
thoughts.
it's so okay. So this is a brave new world in a sense.
Mhm.
So you have to do things like this. You kind of a PMing in a sense because you're asking your developer to do something and you trust that your developer is going to do the right thing. Now the problem is that with the AIs, you can't really do say I've hired someone that's good at doing that thing because I've vetted in some way that it's able to do the right thing. Now what you can do instead is, and that's where we're going inside of Uno in the same way because we're developing Uno using that kind of tooling nowadays, is testing. Testing and skills and skills in the sense that, MCP, not MCP, agent skills and things like that, where if you put as many tests as possible, you're gonna browse the test to see what those tests are doing, and then you can dive into and say, "Well, I don't understand what that test is doing." And then instead of starting from the code from inside, because there's probably gonna be too much for you to figure out, you start from the test and say, "Well, that test is doing that thing. I don't exactly understand why it's doing it. I mean, visually, it should be doing the thing that it says it does, but is it doing it the right way? I don't know." So you're going to ask and dive into that specific method and say, well, that method does that, but how does it do it? And then you ask it to just dig through the code base and say, well, it happens because of this and because of this. And then you take a look at a few things. And that's where being experienced a little bit in higher architecture is important because you say, oh, in here you just put something that shouldn't be there because I don't know, you're doing SQL injection or something like that. So, things like that, it can developer or architect will spot right away. And then that's
Right.
where it's particularly important to go and use the tool to educate yourself and dive into your tooling to understand what happens. But we're seeing it as we go. We're mostly now, reviewing code, editing and debugging the code and writing it. So, but you still have to understand it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with someone that just deploys an app on the it was a story a few months ago where someone deployed their vibe coded app and then it got completely hammered because it was developed without any sense of security aspects and performance reviews and things like that. So you have to know what you're doing still a little bit, but higher level.
Yeah.
We're not doing assembly anymore. We're trusting the compiler to do the right thing. So maybe at some point we're gonna figure out the tooling that's at the top. And for now, tests and skills are gonna be our way through, I think.
Right.
Yeah, well said. No, like for developers who have some background, like nothing bothers us more when a piece of UI is working and we don't know how, right? So it does help to know. All right, so to the point
Oh,
of what you
yes.
are, sorry, yeah, Jerome,
Just
go ahead.
finishing on
Yeah, yeah.
what I did. So I asked it to do a few more things with the pointer. So I figured out that it needs to do pointer click. Then it actually went and typed something, and then the pointer click actually did something. So it validated that it did something right. But though you can see that it actually in the end it it clicked on the button append to date, but it didn't work pretty well. So it kind of stopped and didn't finish the work that it was asked to do. And that's because we didn't give it criterias. So that's where having specifications and things like that, like using spec kit and others is particularly important, where you give it an end goal. And I didn't give it an end goal. I said, just do that. And then figured out somehow what to do, but it didn't do it the right way. Anyways, that's what we've been doing with our app MCP, and that's pretty cool that you can develop your app and test your app this way, and automate it in so many ways, like for QA testing and things like that.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And the second thing that we're working on is so the hot design agent, and that one is actually particularly interesting. So if you get into the hot design using the flame here, and then you get into the agent, you can do things like you make me a fancy looking login page, and then we're gonna have it turn around and then just make a nice login page for us because we're letting it work. It's gonna be working for a little bit.
While it spins and waits, like we could talk about some more things.
One other thing that we've been doing, and that models are pretty good at doing, is using Figma and Figma and screenshots to do things. So for instance, in here, I'm gonna just again make a desktop app. What I'm gonna do this time is take a community feature that we had, a community app that was developed on Figma, and you can see here it has some interesting thing with the weather app. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna basically snip what's in there. I'm just gonna, well, maybe not the snip on the side. Let's make it like this. Okay. I'm just gonna take the screenshot of that particular page, and then in my app, I'm gonna go in GitHub Copilot. I'm gonna say, make my main page look like this.
Oh, cool.
Pretty much. While it's churning, so we're gonna just open quickly the main page here to take a look at what it's actually trying to do, and we're gonna go back to our other app and see what we have. Oh, there you go. So we
Yeah.
have a new login page that's there for which we can have particular thing is it's developing. So this is the base of what we're doing. We're making a lot of improvements in that particular sign, but the idea is that you can make your app looking a lot better as you go. Iterate on ideas directly. And one of the things that's particularly interesting here, you see, for instance, the create account button. I would like to make it, I don't know, on the side of login. Let's move the create account button to so next to the login button. So we're just gonna let it run. And I'm gonna show you when that particular thing. Okay, so if we're back to our test with the main page, we can see that it actually did something here. So let's try and build the app and see what happens. So it might fail. We don't know. We'll see if it works on the first try. So it does fail. So what we're gonna ask it and say, let's fix it. We're gonna ask it to just fix the build. So it's gonna start the build and figure out that there's some things that don't work. Sees that the drop shadow effect is not implemented or not. It tried to do it in the same way that it does in WPF. It's not the same thing. So it's gonna try to fix it. There we go. Now we can start the app again and see what we have.
So eventually it would have been smart enough to know not to try the drop shadow in the first place, because you just said
That's
make it look
correct.
like this, and then it said, "Oh, I know that there's a drop shadow. People have
That's correct.
traditionally used a drop shadow to make that,"
Yeah,
and eventually would have known not to do that, and it would have tried it a different way. Or it could have said, "I don't know how to do that because we don't support enough features to give you that."
That's correct. So we do. That's the thing. But in some cases, the model it doesn't know what it doesn't know.
Yeah.
So it's going to try to figure out things, and then in some cases it doesn't work. So we're going to try to figure out if if it finds out what it needs to do. So in there, I think it's figured out that it needs to do something in a specific way. So we're going
Okay.
to see if it's able to do that. So it ran the build. It saw that there's an error. We're going to see if we can hint it at modifying the theme shadow syntax. So there's effectively a theme shadow feature that's available in Uno. And let's see, no, still not there. Okay, so it's probably because we had the application running. So that's one of the things that in Visual Studio we're working on, is to get the work all of this working properly. So we can see that there's now a shadow around
Yeah.
the cloud. So that's the kind of things that we can get
That is
with
cool.
AI. You can give it a screenshot and it will make something that looks like it. And you can iterate over it and say, well, this is not exactly what it should be. You can do things differently and hint it. And you're not spending hours just fiddling with, smaller details and everything. And now we can see that if we're back in there in hot design, we can see that now the button is moved. And one of the things that's interesting that agents don't do yet, it might happen at some point, but we can go back. We can go back at the version that we had before. So let's say that one was more interesting, then we can go back and say, well, I want that one because I changed something that was not super interesting. Or I could go back and just keep that one and then apply to my application. And then if I apply to my application, that's the UI that I'm going to get. There you go.
All
So
right.
much fun around
Yeah.
generating applications this way and using tooling to make applications faster.
But when you can already see, like, it's a very different world, we are living in. It's just the things that we are able to do with just AI.
Hmm.
It's amazing. So Jerome kind of showed you the real way of doing things, which is where you take a screenshot and you make your app look like that. But if you are bent on doing things the right way, the traditional way, like let's say you have the luxury of working with designers, for your app within your enterprise, they like to work in things like Figma, which is complicated. So what we have had traditionally is like this is a Figma plugin. You are looking at like a kit that you have started with. So the designer puts in UI, design things with UI that's already part of it. So we know the components, and this is deterministic. So based on any of these app screens and layers, I can say generate me C# and XAML, and we have been able to do that deterministically. But what if you didn't start with this UI toolkit? What if your designer did something completely random? So this is another nice workflow here. So like I can select this particular screen, for example, which is a login screen. I'm going to make it maybe a little bit bigger so you can see. So let's say this is the login screen, right? So now these are layers of design. So designers know how to put in variables and auto layouts and things like that. But you can abstract all of this out. And I'm not brave enough like Jerome to actually show you my AI running and doing things. But I do have proof that I cheated, right? Because like I don't want to write this code. This is AI's job now. So what I have here is an Uno Platform app, and I essentially wanted to start from that design. So this is where we kind of fall back into Figma's own things. They have their own MCP servers. So what you're seeing here is our MCPs working with Figma MCPs to validate that what you're creating is actually real. So we make sure that Visual Studio here, GitHub Copilot, I'm in actually VS Code, but same exact experience in Visual Studio. So in agent mode, you can choose whichever model that works the best for you. Again, just like what Jerome showed, if I look at my tools, I do have the Figma MCP tools, which is all of their stuff. And I have my Uno MCP tools, which is all of my initialization and best practices and docs and my app interactivity. So with all of this, I just have more confidence. So here you can see, like I said, look up this URL, which is actually the design for my login screen. And can you spin? Can you get me an Uno Platform app that looks just like that? But with that MCP, tie in both ways, now it's able to look up, like I see your primary, tertiary colors, like I see the gradients, I see the typography, the fonts. Would you like me to add this as XAML? So I'm like, sure. So this is where you can see like it's invoking the Uno Platform MCPs. Like it initializes, takes screenshots, looks at the visual structure, and it takes on screenshot after screenshot to make sure it looks exactly like my Figma design, but it's also functional. So if I go ahead and run this really quick, again on desktop, because it's it's the quickest way. So we started from a design, and this is the app we got. And let's make it kind of smaller for a mobile form factor. So this is what we got, and it's Material Toolkit. It added all the things that it needed. So let's put it side by side. Like, so this would take us, in any designer developer handoff, like several days for us to pull this off. Here it's like 5 minutes, right? Because you have multiple MCPs working with each other, trying to validate what you're doing is exactly what you need. So this to me is really really nice to make that workflow between designers and developers really comfortable. And you had mentioned one thing at the very start, Robert. So I'm going to switch up to one more project. To your point, I also build apps that I have absolutely no clue, because I did not have any, knowledge of the code that it's been written. But I'm not shipping it, so eventually I should know what I'm doing. You folks can still hear me, right? Yes. Okay. Good. So here is a game of Tetris, right? Because why not? We have AI. So this is Tetris, where I started with a simple prompt to say, you have MCP tools, can you make me a game? And in any circumstance, this is like a couple of weeks work for us to write this all up by hand. And this is me not even looking at the code, just trying to see how far we can go with AI. Take a look at this. This is a full-on game of Tetris where I have autoplay. I can start it. So it's got the animations, it's got autoplay. I can have keyboard control, and it's figured out the game logic and how it ends and what my scoring should be. All of it by itself, and it validates. So I gave it individual prompts to say, make sure certain things are not okay to switch up, like design wise, and it gets all of it and builds me a game in like 20-30 minutes, which would take me weeks to do. So this is again the power of AI, and it's the context that you bring that really matters here, because you don't want AI to just fly blind.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Lots and lots of cool stuff in there. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Very, very impressive. Um, are we looking at a preview? Is this GA'd?
This is
What do
GA.
GA'd?
All of it that you can see, you can use. It's all
Excellent.
available.
All right. So
Absolutely. And
yeah,
we are constantly, like Jerome said, working on things, and Jerome and team are working on some big things that we are dying to share, but we cannot yet. Those things are coming in the next few weeks.
we'll definitely have you back sometime soon. Thanks so much for coming on the show and showing us these great things. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Oh, before I stop, where can people go to learn more about everything we've seen?
So I would start at platform.uno. That's the
Okay.
one URL that tells you all about what we do. And there are tabs in there about, what the platform offers, what is Uno Platform Studio, and the docs are also right there. So just one URL, platform.uno, that's going to get you everything you need. And you can start from any IDE. We love Visual Studio, but
Yes,
it
we do.
works with everything else as well.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We will see you next time on Visual Studio Toolbox.